All right.
Hi, Bus Old Man Phil here, and here's Jason, and we're working on Jason's bus today, and we're going to do a little tour of what Jason has accomplished so far. As far as what I've done, I've mostly just been doing some electrical work, and I talk about that enough. Today's the day Jason is going to give us a story of what he's been doing and what you guys do before you drive your bus more than 3 miles on the open road. Okay.
Okay, so what we're working on here is we're fixing the Silverside hub. A lot of Silverside owners have noticed this already. You can't buy the original seals for the early style brake hubs anymore. So my bus had a new style on one side and an old style on the other. So what we've done is we've come up with a way to convert it to use a newer style hub and a newer style seal. So this is the new style seal, and this is the sleeve that you've got to press onto the spindle.
So hold it longer.
So that's the new style seal. It's just a regular lip seal that presses into the back of the spindle, or the back of the hub. And then this is the sleeve that gives it the correct diameter to seal it onto the spindle. So these are the part numbers in case you need them. This one is a Mohawk 2074450. So we'll get that for the video for anybody who needs it. Okay, and the seal number is the CR Seals, and it's 40086. Okay, and these fit the MCI 7, 8, or 9 front hub or rear tag axle hub. Now, you can also use an MCI 102 A, B, or C, but only the rear tag. It's the same as the earlier MCIs. So that's part of the problem. The other part of the problem we've got are the stud lengths. If we look at the original Silverside hub, which I've got here, you can see the protrusion on the back side.
Back the light away a little.
Yeah,
Perfect.
whereas these, if we press them in, they're going to go that way. You can see there's an extra 1/4 inch of material there. So what happens is if you have that extra 1/4 inch of material, it's going to jam into your brake shoe and cause an interference problem. So you can't use the Silverside studs because they're a different diameter around the shank here where the knurl is, where they press into the hub. But what you can do, we're going to use the MCI ones, and we're going to go down to our local machine shop, and we're going to get them to cut about a 1/4 inch off the end of these so they don't touch our brake shoes. I was going to do it with a grinder, but I decided this is hardened steel. This is going to take me forever with a grinder and probably a bunch of discs, so we're just going to run down and have somebody do it professionally for us. So this looks like it's going to work out, and it looks like it's going to be a good fit, and this should help some other Silverside owners out there that are having brake seal problems, because when I pulled the hub off the bus, it was just completely full of grease on the inside of the shoes, and I spent probably a good half an hour just cleaning all the grease out of that. So this will fix that problem and get us home safely, and should last for quite a few years to come. So let's do a walk around and show some of the other stuff we've been working on. Well, we can start right here. This window's missing. We've located a good window. It's the correct side slider, and the only problem we had is we didn't have the screws for it, so Sage went down to Fastenal yesterday and got some, I think they were number 8 24s or 32s? 32s, number 8 32 screws for us so we can put the window back in properly, because I really don't want to drive without a window. And this is kind of neat here, with the windows missing, you can actually see the original Greyhound colors underneath all that paint. So that's a 75-year-old paint there, and you can see some of it coming through the white, which I think is kind of neat. Maybe we can buff off that white and reveal the original paint color. That would be kind of cool. But let's keep walking around. We checked the serial number in here. We cleaned it all up, so wanted to make sure it was right for when we crossed the border. So number 834, and it matches all my paperwork, which is good, because one of the buses I went to look at,
Point to it, Jason.
it's right here. It's
Picking it up.
yeah,
Oh, there.
It's stamped in the frame. So 3751-834.
Okay, bring the light out a little bit.
Yeah.
There we go.
One of the buses I went to look at buying had the wrong VIN plate for the door plate, so something funny was going on there. So when you cross the border to import this, everything's got to be 100% legit. So it's good. This one, I pulled the front bumper down because I wanted to have a look inside the spare tire well. It's just full of dirt and crap, so I've left it down. We're going to wash that out. When I cross the border, it's got to be free of any dirt and debris. Otherwise, they could refuse me for agricultural reasons. And one of the coolest things I think about this bus is it has a Canadian destination sign. It's been in and out of Winnipeg. It used to run from Minneapolis up to Winnipeg and back. So I think it's kind of fitting that I'm a Canadian and I'm buying it, and it's got a Winnipeg destination sign. So we're going to leave that up for the trip home.
By the way, we're at Richfield Bus Company in Bloomington, Minnesota.
Yeah, the bus boys have been wonderful to me, helping me out, getting parts for this, getting things together, providing an indoor space for me to work out of the weather. It's starting to get cool here. What is it, about 55 degrees this morning, Phil?
Yes, it was quite chilly.
Yeah.
And we're very happy to accommodate you here, Jason.
Yeah. So overall, the bus is in great shape considering the age. It's got a lot of original stuff to it. This is actually the side the hub's going to go on ultimately. I was test fitting it on the other side because I haven't pulled the old seal out. So if you, I don't know if you can get in there, Phil, and see, but this is the original style seal. So it's got like a ring it's got like a metal ring that presses onto the spindle here. And then it's got like a rubber section in the middle. And then an outer ring, which is broken away. And that's why it was covered in grease. So that outer ring was just floating in there. And that outer ring just works as a sweeper, and it pushes against the back of the plate on the hub to work as a seal. So this had rotted away. Obviously, it's 70 years old and broken away. So it was, you can even see, even after I've cleaned it, there's still a lot of grease up in here. I've got a little bit more cleaning to do, and we'll get that done before we put it back together. But yeah, it looks like I'm missing, maybe there's supposed to be a spring on here, isn't there?
Yes, and we can pressure wash that.
Yeah. So I'm missing.
We can do that at night before you leave so that it dries by morning.
Yeah, so I greased this corner of the bus, and every fitting that I found took grease, and which is great. I got to do the other corner still. Even the kingpin took grease, which was nice, and you can see the fresh grease coming out. And checked everything in the front end, and it all feels good. There's a little bit of play in the steering box, which is probably normal for this old girl. And we're gonna keep going. Let's have a walk down the side here. What else are we working on? Oh, the brake diaphragms. I changed the fronts yesterday. So these are the original, not the original, but these are replacement diaphragms that somebody put in at some point. The brake chambers have all been upgraded. They're a newer style with the band clamp, so they're really easy to change opposed to the old bolt-on style. So the fronts, you can just use a standard number 16. And on the rears, we thought they were 30s. They were so caked in dirt that we just went to the parts store and grabbed a pair of 30s, but it turns out they're actually 36s. So I got to go back and exchange the 30s for 36s. And the rear brake can actually, you can still see I've got it apart here. So this is the back plate. I've got it mostly cleaned up now. It's not in too bad a shape, so there's no point in replacing the whole unit when we can just clean it up and use what we've got. So the rear brakes on this side, you can see the brake blocks. They look like they're almost brand new. There's a spring missing on this side that we've got to reattach. I bought a new spring yesterday. We've got to put it back together. And I think we're going to be in good shape. We've got to pull the other side apart and get her together. The other thing we're working on is hoses. I pulled all the airline hoses off the bus, and they're not here to show you. I'll show you in another video. But one of the airline hoses was so rotten, I just turned it with a wrench and it crumbled. It fell apart.
You want to point to where that was?
The airline hose that broke was up at the front.
Okay.
But I've taken off, there's not room to lift this up, but I've taken off the fuel lines. So some of these fuel lines have already been upgraded because it's had spin-on filters put on, which I highly recommend if you're driving an old vintage bus, go to these spin-on filters because these are standard filters that you can buy at any truck stop if you run into troubles. So we're leaving the old ones on here for now. We're going to run it as much as we can to pull all the crap out of the tank. And then the last thing we do before we hit the road is we're going to put 2 new filters on it. And I've also got a spare for while we're on the road.
Shine the light on it, will you?
There you go. So there's a primary and a secondary. So hopefully you only plug up your primaries, and the secondary should last a little longer. So I've taken the fuel line off here. That runs down to the valve that changes tanks. I've taken the fuel line, the return line, it comes out of the back of the head here, or the
Get
front.
that rag out of the way.
Well, it was catching all the grease, all the fuel that was leaking out. So that runs up over the motor, and that goes down to the fuel valve as well for when you switch tanks. I've also pulled the coolant lines off the air compressor because they were looking pretty original and pretty ratty. So there's one that comes, it comes off here and goes down to the front of the block. I couldn't get this clamp off because this bolt here is stripped inside, so I'm gonna have to deal with that when I get home. But I didn't want to take this whole thing off and run into bigger problems today, so I just cut it out of the clamp for now, and I'll fix that when I get home. That's not a big deal. There's another one. It comes out of the back of the compressor water hose. It goes into that manifold. I don't know if you can see it, but it's the same manifold that Sage had the problem that kept blowing apart with holes. And
Lower the light a little.
Lower it?
There.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So it's back in there. So these are just things you need to do before you take a 30-year-old, a 70-year-old bus on a trip after it's been sitting for 20 or 30 years. We're going to change the oil. We haven't done that yet. Transmission fluid, check the diff fluid. You want to do all your fluids because you don't know what's in them. You don't know how long it's been sitting necessarily. It's all preventative maintenance. We're going to change the belts. These are all things, if you do them now, you're going to have to do them anyway. So you might as well do them before you leave on your 1,000-mile trip to bring your bus home. And it just prevents breaking down at the side of the road, hopefully.
Mention that stoplight plate while you're here.
Oh, the stoplight, yeah. So this bus is nice because it comes with all the drum parts. We need to rebuild it. A lot of buses are missing these center parts, or they're missing the drum altogether. This is a reproduction stoplight here that we're having made. The bezel is the original one. It's kind of bent up. I'm going to have to work it a little bit and straighten it to get it to go in properly. But this is a reproduction.
Are they available from you?
They are available. We actually have, we just got our first shipment of them in stock, so they're available to purchase now.
How would they contact you for that?
I'm going to have to, oh, you know what? The web page is actually up. PD3751.com.
Say it again slowly.
PD3751.com. So that's the model number of this bus, and .com. And you can send me an inquiry through there. I haven't updated the website in a little while. I've got to do that and put some prices up. But we do have these available and in stock. And as soon as I get home, I can ship you one if you need one. We're also going to be reproducing the Half Moon with the Greyhound dog and the Greyhound lines on the bottom. We're going to be doing those as well. I was able to obtain an original one that we got from Mark Renner, and we're going to get it scanned and get some of those printed. So if you need to restore your Greyhound dog on the back, get in contact with me and I can help you get the parts that you need. I showed this earlier in one of my other videos, but you can see we've replaced every piece of rubber hose on the bus.
And you've taken out all that flim-flam, all those pieces with hoses and springs and castings,
Yeah.
and simplified the whole path from the water manifold to the radiator.
Yeah, there's actually a few more I have to do. They're way back in there. They're part of the heater system, but the heater system is currently shut off. So as long as the valves don't leak, then I'm not going to worry about those ones until I get home. If they leak at all, then I'm going to have to deal with them here, but hopefully that's not the case. They weren't leaking when we first ran the bus when we were here last time, and hopefully it all goes well. There is one other little line actually we took off to replace. This has a remote oil pressure switch. Actually, come back over here. So it's got a manifold here. It looks like it's got an oil pressure switch for the gauge and two more. I'm gonna guess one of them is probably a low pressure warning light on the dash. The other one I'm not quite sure what it's for.
One should be for the oil pressure gauge, one should be for the telltale light, and the third one may be part of the moto guard system.
Okay, so there's a remote line that runs from here down to the motor. that's fed with oil pressure. So that line was looking pretty sketchy and old and rotten. So I took it off as well to get it made up. Any old rubber on these old buses, you can't trust it. You don't know how old it is. You don't know what kind of shape it's in. And the last thing you want to do is lose oil pressure and blow it all out on the highway, because that would just make a mess and ruin your engine. So
And start a fire,
possibly, yeah, absolutely. So this is a nice braided stainless line somebody's put on here, so it looks like it's in good shape. So I've left it. That's the main oil air feed off the compressor. Most of the lines on this bus are copper for the air system, so we only had to change the flexible ones, the two front ones and the two off the rear relay valve. And I was happy to find when I crawled underneath the bus, the relay valve looked brand new. It looked like it had been changed just before this bus was parked. So we're finding a lot of stuff that's in good shape on this bus, finding some other stuff that isn't quite right, but we're going to do what we can to get it fixed up and hopefully get on the road in a few days. And Phil, my helper here, has been wonderful. He's gone through the electrics. He's got most of my lights working now. I think we're down to just getting the turn signals working. Thank you for watching.